All right. Hello, masturbators. No, that's not really. We may find ourselves with the odd periscope masturbator that just wanders in as well. That's something that women get. When I'm streaming, every so often you'll get the masturbators just roll in and go, "Hey, girl," and like, this is something that you don't know. This is what live streamers who are women get all the time.
What do you guys get?
Periscope masturbators.
Oh,
they just rock in and they're just random.
Is that a
like they
one-way
treat
thing or a two-way?
Yeah,
thing?
treating women's streams like it's Omegle, you
know. Where they're just they're wanting
they're just
requests
going
or something.
Yeah, it's quite crazy. Hello. So Flicker's here, Paul's here. So that's good. Hello, everybody. Now, I'm talking to Benjamin. Now, I don't normally engage with chats just for everybody because I like to be present with my guests. And this one's quite a cool one because I'd like to go deep and talk about something a little bit less culture warsy and a little bit more about what it's like to be an artist who's been thrust into this whole thing and how you find your way back. Can you live normal life back from this whole... Okay, so... What interests me about you is that you were a poet, right, and a writer. You went to Evergreen to write your book, going about your life and your day. And then Evergreen College happens. And suddenly, this poet is thrust into the world stage, finds quite an important story, right? Yeah. And that's... So let's maybe talk a little bit about that, if we can.
What specifically?
Something a little different. So what it was like. So how it feel. Here we go. This is a little bit personal, but how does it feel to be thrust into this thing, right?
It was interesting. I mean, I was ready for something different. I'd been chasing after I don't know. Let's use really stupid language that I hate. But it's foreign. I just started my beer, so I'm not really lubricated enough to come up with the proper word.
That's
but like chasing that muse or trying to create something that has a certain sort of measure of innovation to it within the realm of literature, right? So going and investigating like the core and the outskirts of what's happening or what has happened or what could be happening with that thing called literature. So literature as defined from just writing novels and making a living as a writer, like really trying to look at the art form as what does it do? How does it function? How do you break it? How do you rebuild it again? Mm-hmm. What are the limits of that? So that's what I really was keen on exploring, both in theory and in practice. So I ingested literature, I ingested criticism, and I produced literature and I produced criticism over the course of that 4.5 years.
Yeah. So you studied literature. Is that correct?
Yeah.
At Evergreen?
Evergreen, you kind of design your own degree. So I called it.
Okay. So it's a different kind of thing. Yeah. Okay.
It was more about the act of storytelling and world building and how does that actually inform what humans do. I'm really big into narrative, and a lot of what's going on in pop culture has to do with narrative, and especially the stuff that I'm talking about with critical theory. It has its roots in the same exact thing that I studied, being the outgrowth of rhetoric, of hermeneutics, which is the study of interpretation, of taking a text and understanding what it means. And that stuff comes from, religious traditions, from the Judeo-Christian religious traditions, where you have this text and you're trying to extract meaning from it, and then you translate these stories in the Bible into a story for a community to sync up with, from the normies to the elites, right? And they all interact within that kind of world, but that world is shattered, and it has been shattered, and we're in this kind of constantly shattering, breaking down of narratives kind of time right now. And you see, what was that first book that started this trend? But the one about the Wicked Witch of the Green one, somebody rewrote the Wizard of Oz, and it had to do with the witch. I can't recall that, but
is it the one that Wicked's based on?
That's Wicked.
Yeah.
It's called Wicked. So it's a book, and then it turned into a play, right? So that was like the first in a series of taking old fairy tales and deconstructing or reconstructing them.
Like
And then,
Maleficent and
yeah, and then Maleficent, and now you have it's going all the way down into actual like primary texts being Disney's texts, which are designed as fairy tales to be the bedrock of somebody's consciousness with regards to the social realm. So what stories do, especially those really basic stories, myths and fairy tales, those inform us about what it is to be an actor within a world surrounded by other actors in the world. And so there's a lot of very important primary information. The most human sort of information is actually packaged inside stories. You don't sit your baby down and tell them this was before they're ready to actually deconstruct what is happening, they're always telling a story about it. So it's much easier to just jump along that, use the words and the objects and recreate them into ways of shuffling basic moral realities or truths or behaviors to them.
So absolutely. So in that vein, right, you had some exposure to the valid role that critical theory plays, theoretically speaking. Because one thing that I talk about is sort of the critical theory and sociology. They're a controlled burn situation. They're not supposed to jump the road and burn down the town, to use a metaphor, right?
Yeah.
Like in terms of philosophy, it's a controlled burn. It's something that you do in order to, there's a place for ideas and experimentation and thought experiments, and no ideas are off limits, right? But at some point, this jumped the road. This fire got out of control and jumped the road and sort of started to burn down the town.
Well,
right?
When people talk about it being neo-Marxist, or when they talk about cultural Marxism, I think what they're trying to point to is that it's not about, there's this axiomatic Marxist principle of, philosophers have sought to describe the world, but the real job is to change the world. So critical theory is really aimed towards making a change in the world, and specifically the way that it has gone about doing that is to examine everything as power relationships and then try to formulate better modes of exchanging power. But when it gets into the hands of the activists, my main criticism of activists is that they're not creators, they're not policy wonks, they're actually
they're destroyers.
They're toddlers. And there's this mutant strain of critical theory that enables narcissistic sociopaths, which just means basically 2-year-old behavior. It's just 2-year-old. I am the center of the universe, and the world is not fair, and so it has to change in order to, to serve me. And a lot of the different really crazy stuff that I've been examining, like when people start acting like absolute nut jobs within this framework, it's because they're no longer acting on a mature adult level at all, with any notion of give and take, any notion of hard work and like the complexity of situations and stuff.
Well, here's the question though, which is that in the hands of somebody in a state of arrested development, like a toddler, right? Wouldn't any philosophy be bastardized and destroyed? And it's like blaming Nietzsche for the Holocaust. It's not exactly his fault, right?
Yeah, that's a really good point.
I'm saying it may be that, and that's where I think I hold my breath a little when I go, well, critical theory has a role to play, right? Like I said, in that sandbox, it should never be applied. It should never be applied. Same with Marx. It's a framework for analysis, right? It's not something that works. But then again, that's what a political scientist would say. So funny that. But so and I also, my working hypothesis is that through digital marketing strategy, this is now a playbook for activism and marketing template that has basically, we've created cults online. They're manufactured, artificial, superficial cults that have been created through internet tribes. So they're just in the wrong. It's philosophy in the wrong hands.
Could you name one, like what you're thinking about?
The Tumblr cult, the woke cult, the MAGA cult, the 4chan cult. There's a series of tribal cults that exist. Because I used to teach this stuff a decade ago. How to build your own cult. Ha 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 ha. Very funny, right? As a joke.
Yeah.
In marketing, on the marketing side, I used to go. I had a presentation where I was like, "Ha ha. Here's how you create your own cult." Of true fans.
Basically,
it's the true fans principle, right?
Manufacture a community that has a certain amount of cohesion to it. basically.
And intensity and true
Okay,
fans. It's
yeah.
the true fans principle, right? So do you know about the true fans?
Uh-oh.
Which is
Do
if
I
you can
wanna
get
know?
1,000, this is in marketing, this is in creative marketing, right?
I know, but if
In
I
music.
learn that when I start becoming one of these demonic, shamanistic,
No,
woke cultsters, no? Okay, so
no,
you're
no,
saying
no.
that
So the
this
true
tool
fans
can be
principle, this is
used
a marketing
responsibly.
principle.
Okay.
A marketing principle used in entertainment. So it was basically if you can get 1,000 true fans who will buy anything, consume anything, it's the Patreon effect, right? Sort of idea.
Okay.
1,000 true fans, you can make a nice living as an artist.
Okay.
So what you need to do is focus on those 1,000 true fans, true believers,
Oh, okay, yeah.
that sort of idea, right?
Yeah.
And you
yeah.
can see how this on the internet has sort of created those on steroids to the point where it kind of got a bit. So you can see where they. Anyway, it's a different side of way of looking at it. But that's my diagnosis.
Can I just make a footnote here?
Yeah.
It might be the case that one of the quizzical aspects of the social justice woke cult that I've been marveling at, and I think that there's a number of different reasons for that or explanations for it, or let's just say a theory. There's a number of different theories of what one aspect of it is quizzical is that it doesn't seem to have like a central leader, right? It has this kind of this cyclic leader, but it might be it might be the case that there's a bunch of smaller groups that intersectionality temporarily aligns and then they shatter, like what's happening with the Portland moms.
They have the same goal, a shared goal.
Yeah.
And also don't forget that tech companies, that technocrats, they don't like democratic government either. So they have a shared interest in making sure that you destabilize government, right? And also the idea that I've sat there for a year and a half going, there's no leaders. It doesn't meet cult criteria because there's no leader. There's no leader. Who's the leader? Who's the leader? And my answer is I believe that this is actually more of a marketing playbook. It's more like a playbook. So it doesn't have a leader because it's more like a template that everyone is using, like a bad marketing guide, right?
Yeah, so it's attained kind of a certain level of autonomy then. It kind of just operates on its own and people just end up replicating that pattern.
It's a principle. Yeah, it's a template, like a marketing guru. I said this the other day actually. Some marketing guru says 10:32 on a Tuesday morning is the best time to send an email. And he says that to 1,000 people, and those 1,000 people all send emails at 10:32 a.m. on a Tuesday.
Oh yeah, okay.
And then suddenly everyone's bombarded with an email at the same time, and it completely negates the concept. And I think that that's what happens in the marketing world, which is that people are thirsty for tactics and tactical templates. Right. But I think that there's a whole bunch of they're all this fuckery. They're all using the same template. They're all using the same playbook. So they're all using it, some using it more effectively than others, right? So the trans lobby and those people are using it very effectively, right? And others like the Chaz crew are using it badly, right? It's just how so it's tactical application. That's what I believe. I think it's more of a digital phenomenon that I saw from a different side, from the digital side.
Well, then what's your angle? What's your angle?
On what?
To interacting with it.
You can't is to inoculate people and teach them the actual tactics and the strategies. So you can't fight propaganda, right? What you can do is make people media literacy. You can't stop the media from lying. You can't stop, bullshit, but you can sort of try to inoculate people from.
Okay.
Again, it's just a matter of giving people literacy about how these things work. So my mission is to educate people on how the sausage is made from the marketing perspective. It's not a coincidence that these big brands love this stuff, right?
Oh, yeah.
It's a great way to look like you're doing a lot without doing anything.
Yeah, that's one aspect of it too.
And it's a content factory. You can churn out unlimited content for SEO and all of that sort of stuff. So
okay.
It's just a weird, perfect storm. So that's why, anyway, I have a different perspective on a lot of this stuff.
Well, if it is a storm, will it run out of energy on its own then?
Yeah, because I think that we're seeing that it's not becoming viable. So Twitter's advertising revenue was down 22% last quarter. All of these things are showing that it affects the bottom line. Going woke, you lose money.
Why?
It's toxic because the pay-per-click model it is this is you're not interviewing me, Mr. Boyce. But I believe that we went wrong with the pay-per-click ad model, which was that people were incentivized to get clicks rather than so it was all about getting the click, getting the pay-per-click. Advertising was the wrong business model for a lot of these companies. Twitter fucked up. They should have gone for something more like True Fans principle, where you find you can monetize True Fans principle a bit more. So, but that's my nerdery. We're talking about you.
How would that
micropayments?
Twitter.
So Twitter was built on fans, right? The ability for a person to talk to their favorite celebrity directly and have access. That's the monetizable part. So I'm doing a video next week on how you fix Twitter. I know how to fix Twitter. Anyway, we're interviewing you. So it's not about me. I'm talking to you. Which is, so my theory is that there is no leader because it's actually not it's now out in the wild as a playbook, as a template.
Okay.
So it's more like a manufactured product. Think of it more like a product than a cult. But it's got cult-like properties.
Does it work so well?
Because it benefits so many people.
In what way?
Well, commercially, you can produce fuckloads of content without doing anything. Stick a rainbow logo or whatever virtue signal you want from week to week. There's a whole industry. You got to look at the advertising industry.
Oh, yeah.
There's an advertising industry thing. So when you see the amount and the volume of shit that is put out on this under this banner, you start to understand that this is just, it's built in. Fast fashion, sassy slogans on T-shirts. You can get a $4 T-shirt on Wish with all your politics on it. It's nice and simplistic. And there's a 20% portion of the population who are dumb enough to think that's what politics is. I also, because having studied politics,
okay, right? Where'd you get this?
I'm making an approximate. It's not it's a
okay,
generalization.
What does that mean? Why 1 out of 5?
Okay, so one thing that I learned in the first week of politics, right, when I first studied my political science degree, right, was the stats on how many people actually knew the difference between federal, state, and local government. How many people know the basics, separation of powers, right, these concepts. How many people are aware of the Constitution? And it's like 5%, 10% of people, right? Most people don't understand the intricacies of how the political system works. And so something like this ideology gives people an easy template with easy answers that makes it easy and accessible and simplistic, right? Okay. So, yeah, anyway, that's my view. So.
And will it end on its own then? Will it just run out of steam?
I think it's inevitable. It's two ways. Either we end up in the gulag with a man in a wig and an axe over us, and it will still be funny. Or it'll just implode on itself. No, but you have to laugh into these things, right? You have to. Yeah. Do you ever sit back and there's got to be, I'm wired like a comic. I can't help it, right? Which is that just the thought that's Python-esque, this thought that at least the Nazis had the decency to wear suits,
Oh, as opposed to
like they at least were respectable and a respectable enemy.
Oh,
right?
Yeah.
It's kind of embarrassing to kind of die at the hands of some of the ridiculousness.
It's true.
There's comedy in that, right? It's twisted. Yeah. So
it is odd.
We all play a role.
Yeah, I think that's a good observation. It kind of traces back to the loss of formality, and something that I've been thinking about lately is our conception of authority is broken.
Yeah.
It's broken on the level of, I guess, Trump is very challenging for a lot of people to see that as any sort of authority that they can at all, except they just have to completely reject that authority. But it goes so far, that rejection of authority goes so far that in the Pacific Northwest, which is where I'm from, I'm sandwiched between Seattle and Portland, and both of those places are experiencing tremendous unrest, and the leadership is pandering to the chaos. They're pandering to the chaos because there's any sort of show of force is seen as oppression. So I think that we've gone so far away from the Nazi is evil that we project any sort of rigidity, any sort of
Yeah.
order as inherently oppressive. And I think that that is kind of also uh, buzzing underneath the out of proportion hate that Jordan Peterson got, because he's representing
Mm.
on a kind of subconscious level, like, this is a male, this is the man, he wants to order things, he wants order, ergo Nazis. Like, there's that. I guess it folds into that really simplistic kind of mindset that you're talking
Yeah, but
about.
it's actually okay. Can I just say, I know you've talked to a lot of people about this stuff, and I know that this is one of the things I've noticed with Heather and Brett as this goes on. There's at least a part of us, I know I feel this, where I go, why am I even engaging with this thing? It is so stupid.
Hmm. Hmm.
Do you not? I mean, maybe it's just because we're in Australia and we're downwind from it, so we it's not on the streets for us really at this point. It will be inevitably, but at the moment, it's just there's still this element of disbelief where you go, why are we engaging with this stupidity, and where are all the adults?
Yeah.
Like, where are the parents?
Well,
is there ever this part of you that's
there are no
like,
parents.
I know, and I sit there and I go, what the fuck is going on?
Yeah.
Is this our generation? Is it our fault? Because we're roughly the same age, where I go, Gen X, well, technically we're the adults, so maybe we should be just...
I think we didn't show up to enough meetings, and we let the activist class kind of take over. We never developed a sense of...
That's true.
Politics was extracurricular. We didn't learn about, in my generation, we didn't really learn civics as a part of the core curriculum. That's something that you learned extracurricularly. So whoever got engaged in that extracurricularly went on to,
work in like me. Yeah. You went and did a degree. You went and worked for a politician. It was a linear thing. And otherwise most people just didn't know what even the basics, right?
Yeah. So we've seen...
I mean, you guys have voluntary voting, which is crazy, but anyway.
Well,
I know, right? It's crazy.
What you guys have mandatory voting? Do you get a fine?
Yeah.
Like you're going to get in trouble? Like, give me a break.
You get a $70. No, this is an Aussie versus... See, like, Australians sit there and just sort of giggle at Americans, right?
Yeah.
Because you guys get... You die on so many weird hills. And they're not weird. They're very important hills, right? That's the thing. I understand that they're important hills. But, it's like... You got to see it when how the world sees the US versus the sort of the internal stuff. It can be quite funny, right?
Oh yeah, no,
because it is and it's the same way you guys see us. Like, all you see is the most outrageous kind of things.
we are really good at projecting, so you really get to see the crazy, because we've developed the skills to really just go all out. If you're gonna go crazy, you might as well go in grand style. So.
Yeah, but the freedoms, you love your freedom, and that's a great thing. But sometimes there's part of us go, there's some. Most of us don't have. These are settled in the UK and Australia. Some of these things are sort of settled, where we go.
Yeah.
It's understood that you can't just run at somebody and scream insults at them in the street. It's just not something that you have the right to do, and that's kind of settled.
Well, I mean, until you get cops going after you for the wrong Twitter tweet, right? Which is what's happening.
Well, that's right.
So
exactly. Yeah, and that's where it's such a weird thing, because not everyone has common sense, unfortunately. It's been disappointing.
Especially those in power.
Yeah. So. That's been disappointing and disillusioning. But anyway, I was asking you about what it's like to be a poet who suddenly finds themselves at the nexus of what was the early stages of this whole mess, right? Yeah. And what sort of urged you? Did you cover it because it was important, or was it just an opportunity? Like you said before, you were trying to find that sort of moment, that muse. Remember how you said you were trying to find that? Important. Did you cover it because it was like a story that you thought was a story, or did you cover it thinking that this was going to be big at some point? Did you...
There's a number of different reasons going on in there, if you want me to expand on them. But
of course,
there's actually a number of different things going on. One was that it was getting a lot of attention, and the
Mm.
attention that it was getting was not doing it justice. And I was there,
Mm.
so I knew. And I had a cell phone, so I started talking, and I got attention. Now,
Okay.
one can be a poet, or let's just say an artist. One can be a creative person without attention, but that comes at a great cost. You have to
Yeah.
actually kind of nurture your own ego, which can actually be good as long as you kind of learn from your ego. You don't have anybody
Yeah.
watching you like swell and shatter and swell and shatter, which is what the ego does. So I had starved myself from attention for about 20 years. I had been briefly very bright and public, and I I was led to believe that that wasn't correct for me to do because I was letting it go. It was getting way ahead of me. So I went into exile when I was 24, and I just worked in preschool and I wrote novels. And I didn't actually have any contact with attention other than the children that I paid attention to,
Mm.
right? That was my primary attention circuit. But at a certain
And
point,
entertaining children can be good fun and satisfying, right?
yeah, no, it was very, very satisfying. And I got to learn the fundamentals of what it is to
Yeah.
pay attention, right? What is it to pay
Mm.
attention? How do you capture
Yeah.
attention? What do you do with it to keep attention? And then what can you do with it to have it change once it leaves the door,
Yeah.
right? So that I was
Mm.
experimenting with attention. So at a certain point, I outgrew preschool. It took me a long time, but
Yeah.
eventually I needed to graduate.
Yeah.
And I left expecting something, and I ended up next to this college that was really, really cheap, just down the road from me. And I could just devote myself to taking all of my practice of writing novels. I had written 16 novels by that point. Just every year
Wow.
I'd write a novel and a half. I just wrote and wrote and wrote, and they'd always blow up in my face. So I'm like, okay, I'm gonna just go there and I'm gonna concentrate on that. And that's what
And
I
was
did.
that and focusing on more on form rather than like getting some structure in place for your all of your words, or was that something
Well,
you already had in place? Because I'm going through that at the moment with comedy, trying to learn. There's difference
yeah,
between being funny
yeah,
spontaneously
yeah,
and structure and form and a joke, and it's
yeah,
excruciating. Did you go through that
yeah.
process at Evergreen?
Um, Novel writing is kind of a different beast, and what I had set out to do, which was really stupid, and I don't recommend anybody do this, is that I took James Joyce and I took J.R.R. Tolkien, and I'm like, okay, how about if I combine them and try to make something better, right? So I really
How did that go?
I bit off more than I could chew, and I ended up writing novels in fantasy and horror and science fiction and modern day and poetry. I had all these different genres, and I needed to figure
Mm.
out how to get them all to work together because my ultimate goal was to make like a parliament of fictions or some sort of symphony where you have all the different genres acting together in concert to tell one story. And what would that actually do? And could you get them all to work together? And I tried over and over again, and I kept on failing. And so when I went to Evergreen, I'm like, okay, I'm going to start over, and I'm just going to read the history, and I'm going to read the literature, and I'm going to go through. I'm going to really study, and then I'm going to practice writing these novels all over again while I did that. So
Yeah.
I had a lot on my plate when I was at Evergreen, and Evergreen gave me the freedom to just do my own thing. Basically, after I kind of
Yeah.
figured out the format, I could design my own major, and just basically I was in the library every day, just like in the library, and then I'd take a class and interact with the young folk, right, and then get introduced through my job, which was in media, to all
Yeah.
these trainings and all these different seminars and these workshops and these lectures and all this stuff like going on, which was in a completely different direction than what I was doing. It was
Yeah.
actually the
Yeah. They're
opposite.
very different. Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
No,
They are.
it literally, my first professor stood up, and I'm on camera, I'm filming her. This is a very important part just for my story. I'm on camera, I'm filming her, and she's talking about trying to divest the college of the Western canon because it's supremacist. And I'm there, I'm working my ass off to try to take the Western canon to the next level. And so I see my first
Yeah.
teacher completely betray what I was doing. And I'm like, well, what is going on here? And not only the
Mm.
pursuit of excellence, but all of my core moral values were being betrayed in that meeting, where it was no longer about merit. It was no longer about individual drive. It's no longer about individual responsibility. It was collective responsibility towards a collective drive, reducing everybody to their identities and their tribal groups. It was a complete betrayal of on a number of different levels. So
especially when you're an adult that's been out in the world for some time and worked and operate within the world. No, but like most of us do. But for the most part, you're you've lived an adult-ish life throughout the world, and you try. I've tried to go back. I canned my PhD because I just went, I cannot stand this shit. I can't do it. I'm too old. I'm too old for this. I know, but there's this point you reach where you just go, you know what, my value is better out in the world than inside those walls. And that's where I find it very interesting to go as a mature age student or an older student. You bring certain, I think, a bullshit radar to the university that the kids don't have.
Yeah. Well, and that breaks down into several different ways. I also need to say that what I saw them teaching was not only a betrayal of my ideals in the academic sense and in the artistic sense primarily. That's what really disturbed me, was that we're betraying art now. But I saw that the ideas they were putting into the heads of those 19, 20, 22-year-olds were directly producing absolutely horrendous behavior with no self-understanding. So I had spent 15 years teaching children to become adults. And now I was watching adults teaching adults how to become children. Like literally, like the Evergreen story was, we're going to take 22-year-olds and turn them into 2-year-olds. And I'm like, I wanted to leave that shit behind. I'm not going to go that direction. So,
here we go again. Yeah, that's pretty funny.
There's your joke.
Yeah. Always there for the joke. But the thing about this whole thing is that it's twisted. There's a twisted, morbid, and it is, because it is. I think if it wasn't so ridiculous, it would have been nipped in the bud. And I think people have made the mistake of not, when Evergreen hit, right, which was that people didn't take it seriously enough because they thought, oh, that's just kids, or that's just idiots, or that's just green hairs, or that's just kids being kids. And I think that as we saw this creep over years, people just, you don't think so?
The people who are responsible for it happening on a national or international level are the ones who suppressed Evergreen. Like the same people who were diminishing that story are the ones that are pushing society to go through it on.
But do you think they're pushing it, or do you think that they were like me, where we just kind of went, well, those people have always been around, they're idiots. If you're involved in politics, there's always that segment that are just crazy, right?
Yeah.
And maybe that there's a whole pile of Gen Xers who just thought that we were dealing with those crazies, and they were just organizing on the internet and got more power because they had. And that's why I'm wondering whether we cut them a little bit of slack, where most people just didn't see what was happening until it hit the streets.
Well, I needed the attention. As an artist. I absolutely had to get attention because I was dead. I was dead in the water as an artist. I'd wasted 20 years of my life getting ready for attention. So I had to participate in the attention economy. It's right there. But also beyond that, I had saw how these ideas translated into that behavior. So if I was just outside of it and had not seen why the kids were acting like children, or why the college students were acting like children, I wouldn't really understand that it did have any meaning. But there's absolute toxic, manipulative, malevolent force going on underneath it. That is what the kids
it's hiding in plain sight.
What their behavior, that's a symptom. That's the after effect. Like the blow ups, the protests.
Yeah, exactly.
All that stuff. It is ridiculous. Look behind it. Don't follow the money. Follow the morality, basically.
But if it was me, it is actually, I swear there's going to be theories for days hopefully when this is all over, about what happened. Like they didn't diagnose totalitarianism till after it happened, right? It's one of those things. It's kind of a new phenomenon that we're still trying to diagnose, right? There'll be a name for it, right? But I completely forgot what my point was. That's okay. Doesn't matter. Move on.
We were talking
No
about
brain
the ways in which the underlying structure is kind of manifesting in these behaviors, and people can disregard the behaviors. But my job, and I was probably doing a little bit too good, because Evergreen eventually did what they could to suppress me, like in the market of ideas, by like roping my scrubbing my YouTube channel from Google search results.
And I suppose and then when that happens to you, you start being a victim of this stuff. You start to see it for what it is, right? Exactly. Where you go, I'm just an ordinary dude, and like,
that's
in my case,
funny part
like,
to me. That's what I like.
I'm nobody. Like, what the fuck? What the fuck is going on? I just disagree on biological sex and think there might be a problem here. That's it. Like, what did I do?
Yeah.
You know, like, and I said, there's that thing, you know, where maybe it's just that thing where you go, what the fuck did I do? I'm a marketer and a writer and a smart ass. I just a comic. I don't give a fuck, right? I happen to have a politics degree, so I can somehow know some of this stuff, but it's like smart. I'm the jester. I'm not the king, right? I don't give a fuck.
Have you been canceled yet?
Oh, I had to cancel myself. I don't give a shit. I wound up my business on purpose. I don't want to do it. I decided that marketing is evil. It's not 3 years ago. I saw the writing on the wall. Okay. So they can't cancel me. I make my own money, so that's all good.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. So I saw the writing on the wall and just wound it all up. So what was I going to say? I was on my own. I was in a period when I got unwell as well, like really sick. So I was on downtime anyway when all this stuff happened. And someone called me a TERF, and I went, "What's a TERF? I don't fucking know what a TERF is. Okay. I'm just a feminist. I'm a feminist. Okay, all right. What's this new thing? All right." And next minute, the TERFs won the argument, and next minute, here I am. Right. Yeah. So anyway, that's it. So so when is there anything? So you then after this whole Evergreen thing, you moved into the gender stuff. Right. So you started to explore because there's so many branches of this, right? There's so many symptoms, which is that critical race theory, the gender, that clusterfuck of things. Because I've discovered you through Megan Murphy, right? Oh, okay. And so it's just these pillars of critical theory, right? Critical race theory. Yeah. Gender, I can't remember the others, but no fucking class whatsoever. Yeah. No class analysis whatsoever. But
class is out of fashion.
Yeah. God forbid. Because you'd actually have to do something then.
Yeah.
You'd actually have to address real inequality then.
Yeah. I'm still having a hard time getting my head around class issues. That's something I just really don't understand. So I'm kind of distrustful of even a class analysis, but I'd rather have the class analysis than the same thing happening on the level of race and gender. So it's more solid when we're talking about material things.
Well, that's the thing. Like Marx was a materialist, right? And that's the thing. Pomo is completely at odds with Marxist theory, and Marx was never a model. Communist Manifesto, if you take that out, right, let's consider that to be the drunk tweet of Marx, the embarrassing tweet. If you take his whole body of work, it was intended as a framework to diagnose and explain history and how and explain the common denominator for various movements in history. It was never prescriptive. Right. And that's I feel like a lot of my job is to defend Marx against people who make generalizations about Marxism. Frustrates the fuck out of me. I've thought about creating an angry Marx Twitter account where he just roasts the pomos 24/7. But I don't have time. I don't have time. I wish
Marxists are getting pretty pissed off about the pomosts.
Yeah. Oh, well, they're at odds because Marx was based in reality and economic reality and class analysis. And there's something valid to be said about that. And wokeism, if you actually understand Marx, wokeism is absolutely superstructure level shit. It's superstructure stuff. It's how power operates
Okay.
to like alienate. Anyway, I'm just saying.
Yeah.
Went off on a fucking tangent.
No, that's fine.
But yeah, so in terms of, so you started to cover this stuff. You move into the, what did you learn from the gender series that you did? Other than the fact that everybody hates everybody and there's no such thing as like a compromise position.
What did I learn from my gender
Aside
series?
from that, what did you learn because you talk to all these people, right?
Yeah. I learned that
learn to never touch gender again.
Well, see, there's those third rails in the gender conversation, and they're so fucking predictable too. They're so fucking predictable. The problem with group female psychology. That's the question. It's not a problem. Like, this is the question.
You can be honest here. It's fine. I've said feminists are nuts. It's okay.
Yeah. So what is it like for women to operate in a group? How does power operate in the female dynamics, right? It operates in some strange
That's a good
ways.
question. I wish I had the answer to that one.
And I worked in an industry, to harken back to my childcare days. I was working with a bunch of kids and women in a group. I would be the only male in the group.
Yeah.
And so I'm watching all these power dynamics that I'm excluded from, but I'm subjected to other kinds, right? So I'm subject to certain rules.
Oh, women are vicious.
But I'm no, and
you can say that. It's okay.
Well,
I do.
No, it's bad because there's a lot of that. It's just fascinating. Women are absolutely
it's like that Seinfeld joke. You know that Seinfeld joke?
That one?
Where Elaine said that men punch each other, but women just tease each other till they develop an eating disorder.
Yeah, basically. Yeah.
It's a psychological warfare.
And anyway. So when you get to very intense male to female personalities, men inhabiting the female archetype is a man will always masculinize that which he becomes. Like, so when there is a male to female transition, it's a male's version of a female. And not all of that's bad. Like
it's almost got knockers.
Well, there's the extremes of, like, you can see like there's this pornographic kind of in certain extremes, but even in the very mild manner, very lovely, very absolutely lovely, caring, male to female transsexuals. There's this concentration of the feminine that is actually very delightful to kind of bask in and to interact with. But so I didn't learn one thing. This is like one of my lifelong studies, because my basic thesis is that sex produces life, right? And that includes everything that we are, even up to our consciousness. And sex involves gender in order to propitiate the correct amount of attraction to create that life and then to sustain that life. So everything that we talk about when we're talking about gender and we're talking about sex, we're actually talking about the fundamental properties of life and our lives as human beings. This is absolutely the framework of all of civilization. And this is my problem with the complete gender ideologues, or the non-binary, let's smash the gender thing, is that you cannot create an interesting story without gender. You will have to have those aspects of life. Now, when we get into the topic of stereotypes, we get into the topic of psychology and harm and a lot of the suffering that women have gone through. Like when you talk to women about the amount of suffering and, from harassment to abuse, that actually molds their character very strongly. Like that really informs not only their self, how they see the world, but also how they operate as a unit. So you don't want to piss off that corner of feminism.
No, but you know how we were joking though. But you know how I
Yes.
was joking about women being vicious and all of this stuff, right? There's a thing where I can say that because I'm part of the group, right?
Well,
I can say that because they know me and they know that I
yeah.
am all of that sort of stuff. I don't go in and say, "Hey, women be bitches," like it's
No.
not. I can. It's like you can you can talk shit about your own family
Yeah.
in ways that other people can't. But the second someone from the outside comes in and starts talking smack about your family,
Oh,
even
yeah.
if it's the
Yeah.
same thing you would say, it's that whole
Yeah.
thing. So,
Well, I saw
like,
a lot
yeah,
before I entered into the gender discussion. I saw a lot of nasty, stupid op-ed feminism, like just like the bitchy women, like why we're gonna hate men. And I was interacting it on the rhetorical sophist level, right? I was interacting with it as this net negative movement that's probably anti-natalist in the end. It's like it's anti-life when you get down to it. We hate men, we hate our function as females. Like there's that kind of thing going on. But I wanted to break through that and really like interact with actual feminists. And so I started
yeah,
my interaction with Megan Murphy because she was like
mm,
the correct one to go
yeah,
through, and our the stories interacted because I was one of those free speech
yeah,
people because that was the story to tell at that point. But going
mm,
through that discovery process, it's not just about giving voices to women. It's actually modeling a positive male to female relationship is one of the
yeah,
core things that is in the background of
absolutely,
my interviews with women, just
yeah,
to show how a man and a woman can interact because there's not a
yeah,
lot of representation for that. And I think that is
no,
absolutely an essential part of like understanding all of the different attractions and the repulsions that we have for each other is to see two people interact
mm-hmm,
very respectfully towards each other across that
mm,
sex divide. So,
yeah, and that's what I try to do as well, as much as I can. Is that everyone's like, "Oh, why do you talk to men?" And I'm like, because I like men. I made two of them. Like, what the
oh
fuck?
yeah, well there you go. Huh.
I have two boys, I have a very, but I also know that the sex dynamic shifts depending on the particular man and woman in a
Oh yeah,
relationship, right? I've been in
and
a very bad
age and
marriage. I've been
yeah,
in a very bad marriage and a very abusive marriage and a
yeah,
relationship and a very, very good and healthy one. And so, and I've actually noticed that really does reframe a lot of the way that I interact with the world, which is
yeah.
that I'm the one that had to grow in order to keep my second marriage, because I was
Oh
being
yeah.
a fuckwit.
Okay.
No, but I'm saying, right, then how I
Yeah.
think I remember you saying something. I think it was on Twitter. It might have been a throwaway comment where you said that there's a lot of trauma that's projected with a lot of stuff. I think you said something
Yeah.
about trauma,
Yeah.
and I think that that is valid, and I think that women do need to take that on board. And I've observed that too, which is that
Yeah.
there's a lot of sort of undealt with trauma
Yeah.
that is projected out into the world that is not really the fault of others. And I had to that's confronting to hear,
Yeah.
right? But I think
And
there
not
is
just trauma, but disappointment too.
and disappointment. Yeah, yeah. Yeah,
Just
well, I
disappointment.
mean, I would argue as a woman in tech, like I've been overlooked. I've mansplained my whole
Oh
fucking
yeah.
life, right?
Okay.
I know this, right?
Can
But
you
what?
mansplaining to me?
So, okay, so mansplaining is there's a whole veil. It's basically condescension, right? But there's an
Okay.
underlying assumption. Again, it's like a female thing. It's like the spidey senses thing. You can tell the difference between explaining or helping and mansplaining.
Okay.
Mansplaining is an unwelcome. You weren't like assume that you don't know. So a lot of it in my sense, I've defined mansplaining as explaining something I actually have a master's degree in back to me.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like I don't know, or something that I've been working in for 20 years and someone
Yeah.
says, how about this 101 level thing? Like it's like that, so that entry level. That's that. And I'm not saying it's mansplaining, but I'm saying that it's always men that do it to me.
Totally.
And
Okay.
that might be a selection bias there, right?
Yeah.
But it's a great word. It's also a great word to splain. Like my daily show is called Taya Splaining. The
Yeah.
idea is that someone who is just trying to explain shit who doesn't know what she's talking about. She just tries to explain stuff, right? It's a bit, so I don't take it as seriously, right?
Yeah.
So I just try to explain some stuff. Yeah. I'll give it a go. So, but again, I think that I'm someone who falls in through the cracks because I'm generally not fucking serious. Most of the time. I'm usually just being funny, right? And tone is one of those things online that you just, that's why video is good. But it's because people just go, oh, you say mansplaining, and there's a tongue firmly planted in cheek there, right?
Yeah.
And it's like, and people cannot
at this point.
And people can't see the tongue in cheek, so it's just funny. But I love video. That's why I love video too. Do you like the medium of video? Because I know that you're like me. I think you were one of the first people to tell me that I should do it. And I'm just like, no, I want to puke when I get on camera. I can't stand the thought. I cannot. I've spent the last year just skilling so that I can do this and direct the camera and just do it. I was so afraid. I'm like you. I had laid dormant for 20 years because I was afraid of the camera. I'd get requests for interviews about things. I'd requests for speaking gigs, but my stage fright scared me. So then I got sick and I went, fuck, I need to do video. And then a few people gave me a push, and that whole non-verbal cue thing, right, where people didn't realize that that I'm just mostly a smart ass. Right. And so, and now I'm here, and it's just like, oh, fuck, that's crazy. But I think you were one of the first people to say, you should do this. And it's like, I don't want to, but okay. Anyway. But so you lay dormant. There was a point to this, which was that you lay dormant for 20 years, and the medium of video, you're a writer. Did you struggle with this whole camera thing as well? Or are you because you're an introverted type, right? Or are you extrovert who self-tortures? Are you an extrovert who hides or an introvert who's actually introverted? You know what I mean? The line between tortured artist and introvert is you.
You can see my growth as a videographer, or whatever this thing is, content creator. It's pretty well emblazoned in my very rudimentary first Evergreen things. Like my first video, it's me in front of my cell phone camera, and I'm making a joke about Evergreen because everything is shot in vertical, and now I'm shooting in vertical or whatever. You know? But there's a number of different, like, just to briefly critique that performance, I had a lot of anxiety doing that. And that some of that anxiety was performance anxiety, but a lot of the anxiety was that I couldn't actually talk about this stuff. I had been thinking about this stuff alone, like completely alone, just watching it happen over the course of months, right? So like, and now I'm going to finally like go out and talk. So you can see me like playing with the camera and pretty well adapting to it. And I had to do a lot of work, and I still have to do a lot of work with my vocalization. I'm always mispronouncing things. I stutter. I stutter.
Same.
You know, so there's a lot of different things that I'm trying to mop up and get to the next level. So I put a lot of work into that. But when I was at Evergreen, one of the things that I realized about my problem with literature, because I kept on writing these books and they kept on breaking, like on a structural level, but on a sentence level. My stories kept on breaking. I made really, really difficult pieces of literature. And I figured it out one day when I was writing this one character, this mad woman in 1843, just this woman in this, you know, insane asylum, but a very posh one. So she's just told by her doctor to write through her madness. And so she's just writing, but I heard her voice and it just became like this pattern. And I realized that I need sound in order to make meaning. So that's fundamentally what makes me a poet, is that I can't actually construct anything without considering the sensual aspect of my sense making. That's what informs everything. So when I started to perform in front of people and actually talk to them in recorded fashion, like, look, this is my medium. Like, this is my medium. It's alive. It's fluid. I can hear things now, and I can make sense. And then I can start to interact with people through the camera. So
Yeah.
I'm basically a
No, that's cool.
performer who was too proud to read somebody else's script. So I had to go away and figure out mine before I was ready to perform it, right?
Yeah. But I think people don't realize like the learning curve of this stuff too.
It's
Like
different for everybody. There's a lot of
it's
different
so
aspects to it.
yeah. I mean, I'm pretty technical, and even I
Well,
still
it's not a
stutter, I still
technical thing. You have
misspeak. Like
to,
even
well, yeah,
yesterday,
there's
you
that.
just
Yeah.
get. But even just taking in comments, and it's like driving three cars at once a lot of the time.
It's interesting. You have to really like choose your battles when you're
Yeah.
performing, especially live if that's what you're doing.
Yeah. Yeah, I just stream every day because I just realized
Okay.
that it's just easier. And because I'm flexing, it gives you all the skills to do stand up that you just, and you're going to fuck up. And I did yesterday. Someone, like an acronym, and I didn't recall it straight away. And I said the wrong thing and I looked like an idiot. And I go, oh, well, I look like an idiot. And okay.
Oh yeah, I
And
always
then you
look
get
like an
hecklers
idiot.
and you get hecklers and you get all this sort of stuff. So
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
good.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
It exercises those muscles. I mean, it's only been a year. It's not like I've been doing this for 5 years or anything. So, but I don't edit.
Yeah, I do editing.
I did because
Well,
you
I'm
do.
trying to
Because
play the
I've noticed that
game.
you. Yeah. See, I don't care about the game. I've never.
Yeah, no, I'm trying to play the game right now
Yeah.
so I can
No,
make
that's
money
good.
off of it, right? So,
Yeah. Well,
which
I'm
is
of the
all okay.
view. Well, think about your true fans principle, Benjamin. Sorry, which is that the you just need
You
your
get a Ben
1,000.
pass. My
Do I?
1,000, really.
Oh, last time we spoke, I wasn't sure if it's been. Yeah.
It really is. I wanted to say it's Canadian women, but I think it's just UK women. I'm okay if they're from the UK and they're females. Like,
Where does Australia fit then?
aren't you guys loosely apart? I mean, like you're basically just like hot, deadly Canada, right? Like there's not a lot of difference between you two.
I don't know. That used to be a compliment, but now not so much. I think we sort of, I think we're kind of more aligned with New Zealand these days.
Oh yeah.
But,
I'll have to make my way
so,
out there someday.
yeah, you will when we're allowed to travel again.
Allowed. See, this is the
Is it?
fucking problem with you people. Allowed. Fuck that. We do whatever we
Well,
want.
I'm in yes, but I'm also in Western Australia where there are 2 active cases between 2 million people. So I think, 2. Our border is closed. So Western
The
Australia.
boogeyman, the
Yeah.
boogeyman. I'm sorry. No, I'm not
No,
making fun
but
of
I'm saying, right?
anybody.
I'm just saying you can roast me all you want, Americans, but the proof, I'm just going to, there is something to be said for the police state in this
Well,
instance.
okay. I guess
We
if you're
closed our
waiting for
borders
a
completely. We locked
vaccine,
our borders down.
okay. And how's your economy doing?
Fine. So we're back to, so basically, because we're a mining, farming
Okay.
economy, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Now,
Okay.
I'm not saying it's great. I'm not saying it's okay. So I'm in Western Australia, on the west coast of Australia, not the east coast, where Sydney and Melbourne are.
Okay.
So what we did was we shut our border. We've got a full border to the rest of the country, all the way up if you know the map of Australia. We shut it all down and just basically locked ourselves out of the rest of the country.
Okay.
So we're fairly self-sufficient for the most
Yeah.
part. So we can eat
Actually,
and
maybe I should move there.
we create petrol and gas. We're an oil and gas state. So I mean it's never perfect, but you go to the local mall here, it's packed. People are idiots. There will be a second wave. There's no doubt.
Oh yeah.
Just because it only takes one idiot to infect 20 people. So or whatever it is.
Your only
is it
hope's
40?
a
I don't know.
vaccine for that to not happen.
Well, that's right. So we're just sitting there holding out until we get a vaccine. But none of us are immune. But you guys were just. I'm sitting like last. I was
You
like, my
guys
biggest
do
problem.
have China just north of you, though, so you are kind of fucked
Well,
in that department.
And also we've got a naval base here too, so that the US like to visit frequently. So we're of strategic interest to the Chinese if things get yucky. Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
So,
well, you have us on our side. As long as
we're allies. Yeah. Good luck. I don't know. I used to have faith that was. Did you notice my mug? You see my mug?
Oh, geez.
Isn't it marvelous? Isn't it? It's just things you pick up, right?
Yeah.
Yes, the most perfect leadership at the most inopportune time.
Yeah. Yeah, we're in interesting times. We'll see how it goes forward.
Yeah. But that's all you can do as a creative, right? And that's why I wanted to ask you is there, I've asked this to Graham and a few other people, there's art in this afterwards. There's a lot of comedy. I think there's going to be some great art that comes out of this and some great comedy. I've started writing, I've released a chapter of my book, things that I've put off for ages and ages and ages. I'm getting done now because I've got that sort of energy, that creative energy. And I'm wondering whether this is just there's going to be a new flurry of art and meaning and reflection for some of us. For the others, for those of us that aren't running around,
I've been
being dickheads.
I'm trying to finish my Evergreen series, and I'm really having a hard time with wrapping it up because I really need to do a video that just concentrates on George Bridges, who is the president of the college and who kind of allowed everything to happen, put everything in place for it to happen, and then covered it up, and now is doing it to other institutions. And I'm watching him, and I get physically nauseous. My stomach gets clenched up, and I want to throw up just listening to him because he's lying constantly. There's just constant lying, and he's this really polite person that's an absolute dictator and just shutting down the college, shutting down the function of the college. And I bring that up just in case of why I'm just so. My problem right now is that I need to continually comment on this stuff to a certain degree, but it really just takes so much out of me.
Is it draining?
Just to look at that amount of non-artistic, non-creative, non-articulate, non-spirited. Like there's no connection.
That's what I meant when I meant it's so ridiculous.
There's no like light shooting from hearts at all. It's just darkness, just shooting from hearts. It's so horrible.
But you're actually, I came to this conclusion a few weeks ago because as part of my like sort of year content, daily streams, you have to make content every day. And I think you fall a lot into, like I just went, this is the grind, right? And it was only really the last couple of weeks where I started to consume music, but fourth wall sort of Patreon stuff from creators. So lockdown, where I'm watching Ben Folds write a song. He's doing songwriting masterclasses with Ben Folds. I'm doing, I'm watching how Graham works. I'm watching all these people create stuff, right? Yeah. And it was started to feel like it was completely at odds with what I was actually doing, which was reacting to the news. And they were like, there's so many lazy jokes in that shit. There's a lot of lazy jokes. It's easy and it's draining. And the culture wars, like, especially for an Australian watching the American culture wars and trying to, yes, you can try to make sense of it, but I think you need to have something else. Yeah. You need to have like that. That's what I'm wondering when I asked you about creativity, whether, because there is a point where this zaps, I don't know which one's correct, your energy completely. And you just go, I can't take another day of anti-woke shit. I just can't do it. I'm exhausted. I can't do it. The world is ending. And my impulse is to make jokes about it and go, how funny is it? Like the idea like that, 50 years from now when this inevitably ends. The thing is that this inevitably ends, whether well or badly, it ends, right? Yeah. And whether we're here or not to see it is another story. However, you sit there and you go, and then so how I keep myself sane is that I create jokes and I create laughs and I try to be a palate cleanser for a lot of this stuff. And, but the one thing, like that idea, that the ridiculousness of being in a gulag with someone dressed in stripy socks, being beaten to death with a ukulele, there's some absurdity in it, right? And you just sit there and you go, what the fuck is going on? Like the kid from the pink-haired thing from Evergreen, the pink-haired person from Evergreen with the, you go, these characters write themselves. Yeah. And that's what I'm saying is that I think you need to find the joy in something that it's actually quite terrifying, right? The more you think about like where this could lead, I don't think it will. I honestly don't think it will, right? Oh, yeah. Have faith in the institutions. Have faith, not the institutions in the like NFP bullshit bureaucracy. Have faith in the rule of law, the justice system. Yeah, that these things they're magnificent, I have faith in my and you're seeing a great test. Yeah, I do too.
We're seeing a great test.
And also, don't forget that a lot of this stuff is online. It is bots.
Yeah.
It is AI. It is disinformation, and it is people who've fallen for bots and propaganda. They're not the majority of people. They don't represent the majority of people, right? And I think that that's what we just need to keep remembering. And I think that it's just every so often you face a great test of your system.
Yes.
Or of democracy, and it ends
like a
up
fucking virus, right?
Yeah, exactly. Every so
and
often
you want to draw your borders, but you should just let it in and just like get tested. Just get tested.
No thanks, I'm good.
Just let it over. Just
nah. If we can survive, I'm fine with just closing our borders. That's fine with me. I get freedom of see. The thing is, the thing about freedom is that you often have freedoms have trade-offs. So for one, I trade off one freedom for another, which is that now I currently have freedom of movement. We're not in shelter in place now, so we trade that freedom of travel or interstate travel for, but we get another one that you don't have, which is that you guys are all on it. Well, theoretically, fucking hell. Yeah. Theoretically on the lockdown. I'm sorry. It's just like there's what the sensible people do, and then there's everybody else.
Yeah.
But also, people can make up their own minds for the most part. I believe, like you said, have faith in fellow humans, but you need to know that there's at least a portion of the population that will fuck it up for everyone else.
They will.
There always is.
Not if we fuck
shopping
them up
cart
first.
People. The upside down shopping cart return people. Do you I'm sure you have them there when you're at the shopping, doing your grocery shopping, and you've got the shopping cart. Yeah, you've got the shopping cart return. Do you have those in the car park? Do you have those things where you return the shopping cart, or do you guys have fucking valets to do that shit for you?
Yeah, but upside down, like this is another.
No, but then there's always
trauma.
that one person who puts it in incorrectly or backwards, and then everyone just follows, and then everyone else follows suit. It's upside down or backwards or whatever, and then everyone else just starts jamming the trolley.
Over a shopping cart.
Oh, like, I've seen some things. I've seen things.
Okay, you guys are.
No.
You're on the frontier.
But okay. No, but you've got the half trolley, half cart, and the full cart, and they can't seem to figure out this system that the half ones don't fit into the full ones, and it's like most people figure out the system, right? Yeah. Most people.
Yeah.
But there's some that just always mess it up for everyone else, and you got it. That's what all of the laws exist for those people.
Yeah, I wonder.
Right? Literally all the laws and all of the warning labels exist for those backwards trolley people.
And the shopping bag on the head of the kid people.
Exactly.
But without Darwin awards, you just kind of up the shit creek after a couple of generations because, let nature take care of itself.
I've said this, and I know that I think we have to have that uncomfortable conversation at some point, which is that maybe we get it. There is something to be said for that. I think it's an unpopular view to just take away the warning labels. Just take away all of the warnings and all of the stuff and just let everyone have guns. Just let them all sort it out, right?
Yeah, that's what we're doing. You should come visit us.
America's the great experiment in many ways. Like it's wonderful because we learn from you guys. It's great.
I hope so.
We learn. No, but we because our system is a hybrid of UK and the US system. So we kind of took the history of Australian politics. If we took the best of both worlds and applied them in the ways that we thought worked. Yeah. So we've got 2 houses of parliament. And we've got a Senate, but we've got a federation. So we've got all these, like the model is just the sort of, so we take the best bits from both, and it's the same thing now, right? So we all lock down and obey and wear the masks and do what we need to do. Yeah. But, we also push boundaries a little bit and push for freedom of expression and freedom of speech and those sorts of things. So we're kind of a hybrid child. I think Australia should be the next great superpower. I don't know about you, but
you guys are going to have to nuke those mountains that are kind of robbing. Like you have a bunch of arable land that doesn't get any moisture because there's those mountains on the east side, right? So you just need to blow the fuck out of those mountains and let the water come across.
That is such an American way to fucking, just blow it up.
No, seriously. Well, you implode it somehow.
Yeah. Yeah, so this is exactly how an American approach that problem. So what you need is some dynamite.
Well, I was thinking more hydrogen bomb.
Just blow it up. Let's figure out the rest later.
And then farm the shit out of it.
Oh, that's funny. You're funny. Oh gosh. But I hope that you're actually creating, or because I know that this has a tendency to sap your energy. I gave up. I just went, fuck it, I'm a comic. I've decided I'm a comic. That's it. That's my brand. Okay. I'm done. Yeah. We're here to laugh at it. I'll educate you along the way.
I have my 1,000 fans now, so I kind of have to keep on producing the material. So
yeah. We'll get 1,000 new fans.
I know, right?
Just who like your goofy green screens. Like your goofy green screens and your funny hats and your other stuff, right? You don't always have to do that. Yeah. That's my view. I think you can just, I'm, internet marketer person. You can make money doing anything you want on the internet.
Yeah.
You can do anything. You'll always find an audience. There's a guy who does 88. He does Super Mario songs on the piano. And he's it's Super Nintendo songs on the piano and just plays those for people. And he's built a fucking audience. Yeah. You can do anything you want. Okay. And I'm just saying there's much more monetizable niches than this.
I know. It is pretty crowded.
If you were in it for the money, you've got to be doing it for something other than that, because it's not a money. I'd be doing like woke beauty blog fucking eyeshadow reviews if I wanted to do things for money, or camera reviews. Yeah,
I like woke beauty tips.
Makes stale marketing advice videos, right? When you can bill out at hundreds of dollars an hour to a corporation, it's a lot less appealing. Yeah. I gave up a lot, man. And I don't care. It's good.
I'm sure you are where you need to be.
Yeah, you too.
I appreciate your upbeat optimism.
You have to be. Why fall into the same nihilism of these people? I'm saying, but that's the goal. The end game is to break us all up, right? Make us all hate each other.
Yeah.
Make us all confused and not know what truth is, right? Make us all ugly inside. But you need light. The only thing that fixes dark is light, man. And you just focus on that. And this is I've done this. It's actually, I'm working on a joke right now, which is you take the 7 deadly sins, right? And you apply it in literally the opposite way, and you have woke. And like the sin of envy, like they're actually so the 7 deadly sins are their 7 commandments.
Yeah.
Anyway, I'm working on it. It's not a joke, but I'm not sure if it's a joke yet, but it's quite a funny little thing. But you just got to find the love in it, So just keep the light going. Don't let them put the light out, because they win then.
Okay.
That's why I said you laugh in the grave. You laugh into the grave.
Okay.
Watch Life of Brian and go Jehovah, Jehovah, and kick the sand and go Jehovah, Jehovah, right to the end. You can't say Jehovah. Yes, I can. Jehovah, Jehovah. I can do it, man. Go down laughing, because they don't want you to laugh.
All right. All right,
I'm going to let you go.
Attempt to manifest that destiny. Thanks for having me on, Tia.
Oh, Andrea's here. Okay, hello. She just showed up. Too late. We're about to go, but you can watch the replay. Anyway, thank you, Benjamin.
Right, thank you, Tia.
All right.
Or day.
Take care. Okay, bye.
Happy weekend.
All right. Thanks, guys. Sorry, Andrew, you just missed it. Thanks for all the comments. That was fun. I'm not sure if... anyway. There we go. That was Benjamin Boyce. I'm going to go. We will talk some other time. Okay, bye.